apologize that I can't stay with you for the rest of the event. We're in the middle of our break, and I'm spending a little bit of time with my partner, but I wanted to make sure that I came here, and so he understands that I have a long history and connection with the Axis of Love, and so it was very important for me to be here, and I want to thank Shona for inviting me. I guess what I want to talk about is the fact that I think that we live in a very important time in the history of San Francisco. I think that the city and county of San Francisco is at a crossroads in a way. And in some respects, I think the state itself is, but the city and county of San Francisco in particular. We have in the city of San Francisco a great deal of wealth. We have great economic prosperity. And, I see it in my district. I represent District 9, which includes the Mission, Bernal Heights, the Portola. And in places like the Mission, you can spend $2,000 to rent a studio apartment. A two-bedroom apartment, paying $4,000, $500 for a two-bedroom. I mean, that's nothing, crazy in these days. And yet, as there is that prosperity, you have a segment of the population, and it's not just low-income poor folks. It's actually, working folks, middle-class folks, who are being pushed out, who are not enjoying the benefits, the fruits of that prosperity, if you will. I've had conversations with people who explain to me how they're making, $70,000, $80,000 a year, which is a pretty significant amount of money, and yet they're finding it difficult to live in San Francisco. And so I think that we have the challenge of making sure that San Francisco does not turn into a city that is only for the wealthy, that is a city that actually works for everyone in this city. And that's what I am trying to do as a member of the Board of Supervisors, and that's one of the reasons that I'm running for the State Assembly. As you know, I announced my run for Tom Ammiano's seat on the State Assembly. I'm proud to have Tom Ammiano's endorsement for that seat. But the mantra of my campaign, in a way, is a mantra that sort of impacts what I do as a supervisor, is the idea that government has to work for everyone, and government especially has to work for the men, women, and children who are in need. I authored a letter to the editor in The Guardian where I talked about how my campaign is about standing up for the little guy. It is about standing up for the little guy or gal, in the sense that it's about making sure that the people that are being left out of this prosperity have a voice, and that they get a chance, an opportunity to get a piece of the pie. And so that means that when we're talking about economic prosperity, that it's not just focused on the technology industry, even though that's an important piece, but that it's also the mom and pop businesses, those stores that ultimately are the ones that actually make the investments in these neighborhoods. The mom and pop shops are the ones that actually hire locally. They're the ones that actually invest in their neighborhood. It means that in a city of prosperity, that we cannot forget about families. San Francisco has the lowest percentage of kids of any urban setting in this country, lower than New York City. And so we have a city that a lot of families with kids are being pushed out. One of the reasons that I push for the initiative of free muni for low-income youth is because we were seeing from families that kids and parents had to make a choice on a given day of paying for lunch for that child or paying for the bus. No one should have to be forced to make that choice in San Francisco. We found the money so that kids, could get to school, so that they could get to an after-school program. It means that when it comes to our seniors, that we make an investment in our seniors to make sure that they live, their old age with dignity and respect. That we have programs that provide meals for them, that we have programs that provide health care. It means that for our women, that the rights of women are protected. You know, one of the things that's happening right now is that there is a backlash from some of the right-wingers that are coming to places like San Francisco, and even in my district, you know, they were trying to intimidate women as they were going into Planned Parenthood. And we passed a law that created a buffer zone so that they had access, free access to these clinics. It means that when it comes to medical cannabis, that we recognize that it is about human rights, that it is a right when it comes to patients having access to the medication they need. You know, no one is... If you're ill and you go to a doctor and the doctor prescribes certain medication, I would think that anyone who has, you know, any kind of compassion would say, you know, this person should have access to that medication. Well, for many people, cannabis, medical cannabis, is something that allows them to live, you know, a healthier life, to live, you know, with some sense of normalcy, to get up in the morning, and we need to protect the right of people to access medical cannabis. The state of California has spoken on that issue, and it's really frustrating that even though California has spoken, the voters have spoken, that you still have a federal government that is really wasting resources trying to enforce cannabis laws that should not be enforced and that should not be a priority. I also believe that we need to deal with the issue of housing. I mean, housing in the end is key, because unless you create housing that is affordable at all levels of income, you are going to exclude certain populations from being able to live in San Francisco. And that's a challenge that we have. We have a challenge where you have low-income folks, middle-income folks who don't have access to housing. And so we need to make sure that we not only create more affordable housing, but that we also protect tenants. You know, one of the things that's happening right now, even though this is a city, vast majority of tenants, many people are being pushed out. And I have heard from tenant after tenant how, you know, they're being evicted, you know, an owner move-in eviction, you know, an Ellis Act eviction, because the market is so hot when it comes to rents. You know, some folks have incentives to push people out. So we need to make sure that we protect the rights of tenants. You know, I'm not against property owners making a buck and being successful, but at some point, you know, that profit goes beyond being profit and becomes greed. And so we have to make sure that we protect tenants in the process of doing that. I also believe that we need to get our priorities straight in terms of, you know, what we prioritize as a city. I do believe that in San Francisco, we are lucky that we have a strong safety net. I want to continue to protect that safety net. I think that, you know, especially in the tough times that we've had, it's been challenging for some people with the recession, which is why, you know, I'm proud that we funded, you know, programs for mental health, after school, you know, meals for seniors. We funded basic health for the neediest members of our society. You know, we funded programs at schools so that kids could learn not only during the school day, but after the school day. We created job opportunities for young people because, you know, public safety, which is a priority for so many people, public safety is more than just about law enforcement. You know, public safety is about, you know, giving people a job. It's about giving people recreational space where they have something positive to do. It's about giving youth options. It's about mental health. You know, mental health, which is a big issue throughout the city, is something that we need to make more of an investment in. So those are the things that I have been fighting for. Those are the things that I'm going to keep fighting for, not only on the Board of Supervisors, but in Sacramento. And so I'm here to talk to you about this, because the thing about what I'm trying to do and what people like me are trying to do is that we cannot do it on our own. We cannot do it by ourselves. We need to have a community behind us. And the more the community that we are connected with is involved, the more powerful we are. The only reason that we have been able to accomplish certain things in the Board of Supervisors in Sacramento is because people have organized and have made it clear that there's political power behind what we're trying to do. And so I am here to encourage the Axis of Love to continue to be involved, to continue to be engaged, to make sure that your voice is heard, that you are, in City Hall as those decisions are being made, that you're also thinking about the state level because a lot of the decisions are being made in Sacramento, and that we never also forget that the federal government also impacts what we do, and so we need to make sure that we continue to make our federal officials accountable. And so I want to be a part of this movement with you. I need your help, not only in my campaign, but in what we're trying to accomplish in City Hall. San Francisco is a city that has to work for all of us, including those of us who don't have a lot of money, those of us who are struggling to make ends meet. This is our city as much as anyone else's city, and it's only fitting that in the city of St. Francis that we ensure that those who have the least, that those that are struggling, that they are able to stay in this city. That's what I believe in. That's why, like I said, my campaign, my motto is stand up for the little guy, for the little gal, because it is those people who need the help, and I'm here to help them. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to take questions.
Chris, I'm going to ask the question, and I'm constantly talking about how the District of Columbia kind of co-opted the resolution that we put in place for compassionate care, and ours is still non-binding, while the District of Columbia actually has it, being impactful. So I'm wondering a little bit about if we, in the next session, I know Avalos has some ideas about opening up the MCA Act, to distribute the clubs more fairly across the city, but that's not the only access problem that a lot of patients have. And when we were, working on the task force supported having our community start to work with Healthy San Francisco, because a lot of the questions that come up from providers is how do I determine who to help with compassion. And what the District of Columbia has is they don't have Healthy San Francisco like we do yet, but they do have a city-verified low-income program. So the low-income program, they can go in with their city card and say, hey, I need sliding scale, or even free. And they're copying our work, but our work has yet to be completed here. Is there a chance, do you think, in the next session of opening up the MCA Act, we can actually look at, are we serving everyone with our cannabis distribution system?
Well, I think, the Avalos legislation provides an opportunity, if you will, to have a conversation, not only about this issue, but any other issue that remains unresolved. So I certainly would encourage you to raise those issues as the legislation is heard. And I think it's only appropriate that we look at that issue. The question that I would have, Shona, is more legally, what is the city's ability to do certain things, because the District of Columbia, unfortunately for us, but fortunately for them, because it is a federal entity, can actually do more in a way that San Francisco can, because we are part of, we're a city and county, but we're also, we are governed by state law, which in DC, there is no outside state entity that dictates to the district, this is what you have to do. So that would be something that I think that we would need to find out a little bit more about the legality of what is possible. But I think that the Avalos legislation provides an opportunity to do that.
Awesome. And then I guess, could I follow that question with, let's get ready for adult cafe permits. Let's allow people who don't necessarily want to do medical cannabis, but who want to have like adult cafes. We have Measure Z in Oakland. We have, the possibility now, when we started the discussion, there was a cannabis state. Now we're looking at, there's 2 states that have adult use, and there's 20 medical cannabis states. Is it time to have the discussion about adult cafes?
Well, I think that discussion is good. I'm not sure. The one question that I would have on that, would be, I feel like we're still struggling with some of the basics of how medical cannabis clubs, MCDs work now because of the U.S. Attorney's Office. That I would sort of worry how that would be seen by the feds. You know, I don't think that there's anything wrong with having a discussion. I mean, I think that part of the challenge we have here is that we have so many MCDs that have been closed, and you have the federal government that unfortunately is taking the wrong approach, and so I don't know that we have resolved those issues just yet. You know, and so I would want to have some resolution around those issues before we start expanding, you know, what's available. It's unfortunate because, you know, the reality is that things are worse in terms of the federal government under this administration than they were in a way under the prior administration, which is really hard to believe that that's the case.
Same head of DEA. There's been no regime change there.
Right.
Yes. I think it's divide and conquer. You know, they don't want us to get together. I mean, these facilities over the last couple of decades, so they just bust them. You know, and Sheriff McElveen was on our show last week, and we mentioned it to him about. He brought it up about the banks. The feds are putting pressure on the banks to, you know, on the mortgages of these facilities that turn their rent to MD and MCDs. I mean, this is like all-powerful government, so you know, we need you. We need you in a powerful place. We need to get you with the
That's right.
Any more questions? Yes.
Since we can't clone you, well, I'm against cloning. I think that's nuts. But anyway, I am concerned for District 9.
Yeah.
Who will finish out your term? Will someone be appointed to finish your term? Do you endorse anyone to help to take your place? Or is that too soon to say, or would you have to cut my tongue out if I did?
Well, I think that there will be a time when we deal with that issue. Let me say, you know, I'm running for assembly and I'm running to win, and I know we're going to win. So at some point there will be a question of what happens with District 9. This is what I will say about that. I think that District 9 has many talented people, many of them, many talented women, who I think could step in and play the role of an effective supervisor from day one. And so I am pretty open in terms of who that person should be and would be. The thing to remember about District 9 is that whatever happens, you know, whether I'm gone, you know, next year or I'm gone 2 years after, that District 9 is still the most progressive district in the city. That District 9 still is a district where many issues are pushed, where the envelope is pushed, if you will. And I think that if the progressive community can be united and can work with the neighborhoods in the district, that we will retain control of that.
Because we have a lot of progressive homeowners in District 9.
But it's not just the typical progressive, you know, divide. I think that the message of transparency, the message of inclusion, the message of people not being left out of this prosperity is a message that resonates not only with progressives, but I think can resonate with everyone in that district. You know, and so I think there will be a time. The time will come when we have that conversation and that discussion, and I am confident that there are, you know, people in there, and you know, I don't want to name specific names just now because I don't want to put anyone on the spot who I think are more than ready to lead the district and represent it well.
That's comforting. Here, I've got something for you.
Thank you.
We put him on the spot and started it. Yeah, we put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Started all day.
That's all right. That's okay. That's okay. You know, I mean, it's part of the job. You know. But anything else that you want to know about what's happening in City Hall or Sacramento or?
Oh God.
There's so much, you know,
There
it's
is.
like where do you start, but
Well, one of the things that I do want to talk about, because it's something that I think we need to be keeping an eye on, is the fact that we are about to transition into the Affordable Care Act, which is the federal healthcare law that was passed, Obamacare, right? And the way that this works is that people will be able to start, enrolling in the healthcare market, if you will, cover California starting in October of this year, through March of next year. And we need to make sure that we in San Francisco implement the Affordable Care Act properly, and that we get as many people who are eligible to make sure that they sign up. And so we need to make sure that no one is left behind in that process. And I'm worried because I feel like this is starting in October, it's already August. I don't know that we've had enough outreach, to educate people about how the Affordable Care Act works. We also need to be careful that in the process of implementing the Affordable Care Act, that we also don't lose the benefits of the healthcare security ordinance, in Healthy San Francisco. Because the fact is that the Affordable Care Act, which is an amazing accomplishment at the national level, still will have some gaps. But because of the healthcare security ordinance in Healthy San Francisco, those gaps won't be as severe in San Francisco. So one of those is the example that the Affordable Care Act, doesn't really cover businesses that have fewer than 50 employees, or businesses where the employee works less than 30 hours a week. And so what you're seeing in some parts of the country is that some employers, where you have workers working full-time, are lowering the number of hours that these workers are working under 30, 29, so that they're not covered. In San Francisco, that wouldn't really be an issue because the healthcare security ordinance applies to any worker where the employer has more than 20 workers that works 8 hours or more. So that's one area where the healthcare security ordinance can provide some protection. The other big piece is that the Affordable Care Act leaves undocumented folks out of coverage. In the healthcare security ordinance in San Francisco, undocumented people are actually covered. Another big area is how the transgender community and the LGBT community are treated under Healthy San Francisco. And within Healthy San Francisco, you have the transgender community getting coverage that they wouldn't otherwise get under, just general healthcare, And so we need to protect that community, the transgender community, that relies on Healthy San Francisco for basic coverage. So I know that as a patient's rights organization, the Axis of Love, has been very engaged, very involved, but implementation of the Affordable Care Act is a patient rights issue. And so I just want to make sure that you're aware of what's happening. We actually held the first of several hearings on this at City Hall a couple of weeks ago. We're going to have another hearing that will focus on how Healthy San Francisco, how the Affordable Care Act is promoted among different communities, especially disenfranchised communities. So I would encourage the Axis of Love to be involved because, this is an historic moment and we want to make sure that San Francisco does it right. Yeah. Anything else?
Guns. The gun epidemic.
Guns. So let me talk about guns. And this is a very personal issue for me because I think like all of us, I've been personally impacted by the tragedies that have happened in this country. I grew up in South Central LA and gun violence was a part of life. And unfortunately in this city there are still places where that is a fact of life. Violence has gone down in some neighborhoods, including places in my district. All of my district violence is down, but you still have gun violence that happens from time to time in places like the Mission. So we made a decision a few months back that we're going to make make it a priority to get as many guns off the streets as we possibly can. You know, there is this infatuation that our country has with guns. And so what we did is we actually set aside money in the budget specifically for this purpose. And I'm proud that to report that we had our first gun buyback effort in the mission just a couple of days ago. And we worked in a partnership with the mayor's office, so we want to thank Mayor Lee and his staff for working on that, our San Francisco Police Department, UCSF, and then this community-based organization, Carecen, that actually ran a lot of it and really engaged the community and even had youth working with other youth to encourage them to bring these guns and turn them in. What was also unique about our gun buyback is that it was the first time in the history of the country, actually, that the gun buyback program was partnered with a crowdsourcing effort. There is an entity called gunbygun.org. It's an internet company that was created by a couple of these young men who have been impacted by gun violence themselves. And crowdsourcing is basically something where members of the public donate through the internet to this website, knowing that their money will be used to get a gun off the street. So they were able to raise thousands of dollars that they used and gave us to pay for some of these guns. And so we leveraged the limited funding that we had, and we set aside $75,000. We leveraged that $75,000 with the thousands of dollars that they raised, you know, so that we could actually get more guns off the street. And we, in our first gun buyback effort, we had 157 weapons that were turned in. That included, that included guns, rifles, and actually there were some shotguns and semi-automatic weapons that were turned in. And, you know, I believe that, you know, whatever you think about these efforts, I know that, you know, many of these are weapons that are not going to be used against a poor person, you know, an innocent person out in the street. So I'm very proud of that, and it was exciting because, you know, we were so worried that about the turnout and, you know, how many people were going to show up. And, you know, the gun buyback only happened during a 2-hour period. And it was incredible. It was incredible. There were actually cars lined up for 3 blocks of people lining up to turn in their gun. And so it was really amazing, you know. And so I'm very proud, very happy. And what I'd like to do is to expand it so that we do it more often in the mission, but also that we do it in other parts of the city. I want to do it in, you know, throughout the city, because it's not just the, I mean, the Tenderloin, you know, Bayview, Western Addition. We want to do it everywhere, and they're destroyed. They're destroyed, and actually one of the ideas that someone raised with us, which I would love to follow up on, is, you know, as these guns are destroyed and the metal is melted, maybe we can, like, you know, find one of the incredible artists that we have in the city and maybe make, you know, some sculpture or something out of this. You know? I want to again thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. I want to congratulate again the Axis of Love for what you do, and I look forward to continuing our partnership. I know that I will come back to talk to you more specifically about our campaign as this campaign for assembly proceeds. You know, I encourage you to be engaged, because, you know, the thing is that as frustrated as people get with government, you know, your government is only as good and as effective as what you put into it. And so the more you're involved, the more you are engaged, the more likely you are to hold government accountable. And it is in the end, that's what it takes to make government work for all of us. So thank you very much for your time, and enjoy the rest of your event.
Thank you.